Welcome everybody to Exchange of Views. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm not very comfortable using the microphone in a room this size. We all very project usually, as we do in the classroom, but we're live streaming it to anyone who wanted to click on the link. So thank you all for coming. We really set this up to be sort of informal. So I hope you all came with questions and ideas and anything you want to talk about. So we're not doing this in a really kind of, like I said, it's informal. So I thought I'll go through and introduce everybody just in case you don't know, but we are lucky to have all of the executive team here with us. So we'll start down here. We have Rick Collins, and you guys can do your own titles because I'll mess them up, as I always do. CFO of some sort, right? And I know there's a thing we have, what's that? Interim, that's right. We're working really hard on keeping that in there. And then, of course, we have Paul Carlin, who's the school's chief legal counsel. Is chief actually in there? It should be, if not. Just general counsel, the general counsel. Of course, May Ashby, human HR. Of course, Dick Hammond, we all know, who is CTS and Student Services. Right, Dr. Georgia Lorenz, our new president, of course. Kate Henry, VP of Marketing, and a bunch of other things, and Communications. There's a lot of that. Of course, we all know Dr. Laura Ross, VP of Academic Affairs, and of course, Janet Balanoff, Director of Diversity and Equity / Title IX Coordinator. All right, we put it on all those, all the procedures, so I'm trying to get good at getting the title correctly. Anyway, so I'm going to hand the microphone over to Dr. Lorenz, who wanted to provide some sort of opening remarks, and we'll go from there.
Hi, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to all of you out there in cyberspace or wherever you are beaming in from. Thank you for giving us some of your meeting time this morning to be able to do this. I'd like to start by just saying thank you for the very warm welcome I've received here at Seminole State College, and I appreciate everyone's patience with me as I continue to learn the people of the college and college operations and everything about the Central Florida region. I'm trying to learn as quickly as I can, but I know I still have a lot to learn. I first learned about exchange of views when I was actually engaging in research for the interview process. So then when I actually got here and started talking to each of the employee groups, I was like, what is this exchange of views thing? And understood that it was suspended last year during the presidential search, so I wanted to reinstate it. And we don't have any agenda, we don't have anything to present to you. It's really just to answer questions, hear concerns, and engage in discussion with all of you. So with that, I will just turn it over and we'll see how it goes.
Who'd like to start?
Not everybody at the same time, please.
Debbie Mead, Physical Sciences. So this is not anything that's like a big deal, but it could be. So 2 or 3 years ago, we built, I guess it's a batting cage area. And people from the public are using it. They're parking on the county property, and they're causing some really severe erosion from the county property. So I'm just concerned about our relationship with the county with respect to that. And shouldn't they be parking on our parking lots and walking the 200 yards to the facility rather than across the street and messing things up?
You are 100% correct. Because I see the sand coming out on the corner there because I come to that corner. So here's the story. So that's also the entrance for the cemetery, I think it is. Yeah. So we have asked students, we have asked people not to park there, especially during in murals. And we have requested them not to do it and have them, but it's good for one semester or two or one time, and then everybody goes back to the same thing. So. Well, that is, I was just about, the only way we could do it is probably put some signs about, towing or things like that. So I'll defer to Rick in the future we'll make a note of that. But I agree with you 100%. I've seen it, and we did restrict it, and it was good for about a semester or two, and then just went back because we were not enforcing it, to be honest. So maybe work with the sheriff's office and If we put some signage for towing, I think that'll take care of that. No, we are. We are. Yeah. If anybody, and I agree. Yeah. Thank you, Debbie.
I have lots of different questions. Should I just ask one, pass it to others, and then wait again turns? Yeah. So a couple years ago or so, the Faculty Senate created a resolution and then a committee and then even created a supervisor survey. And we were told that they wanted to then make it a 360, that it was not just our immediate supervisors, but all supervisors. Where is that in the process?
Sure. You sure, Laura? Sure. Okay. I remember talking with Kevin about this at a few years ago. And at that time, we were embarking on the Great Colleges Initiative. So we had discussed it, but we were focused on the 3 pillars of the Great Colleges Initiative at that time. I guess my question back would be, is that something that the group is still interested in?
I mean, it's come up pretty regularly at Faculty Senate the last several years, and it's just been a matter of trying to find the bandwidth and the time. And
Yeah, I can speak to this. I think we haven't found quite the approach or answer yet is the concern. When we worked with May and HR, they were suggesting it should be more of a 360 approach rather than just a, box survey, checkbox survey. And yet with great colleges, there was concern about the bandwidth to do that. So I don't think stonewalling, it's sort of not sure what next steps could be. So, but if you all are still interested, we'll continue to go down that road. And interestingly, one of the other groups, was it Career Service, asked the same question. So it's not just you. And I don't think any of us are against a 360 approach at all. It's just figuring out how to do that. So maybe we need a committee. May, I'm looking at May, but we need some direction on this. So thank you for bringing that up again.
So a little lighter question. I'm Randy Jackson from nursing. Just to follow up with, we're excited about the H building opening at Altamont, and any further plans for the building in front of the H building and or any other building in the long-term plan at the Altamont campus?
We're kind of taking a whole college-wide look at our whole capital planning process going forward, not just the Altamont campus, but all campuses, taking a look at what capacity we have at each campus and programs that we have located where. And so we're looking at that right now as a sort of a global initiative, looking at the whole college as a whole. As far as the, you're talking about the other automotive buildings that are there. Right now we have no plans to renovate any of those others. We do have in our capital plan a request to the state to fund a second building on the Altamont campus. Of course, the state's going through their own financial issues right now, so we don't know when that will actually be funded. So but that is our number 2 priority right now on our capital improvement plan, is the second building there at Altamont. Can't give you a timeline on it because we don't know when the funding will be available.
Okay, thanks.
Good morning, Craig Tidwell, IT. I had a quick question, and Dick and Laura I know are aware of, I've been asking about this for years, but we wanted to do, myself and Dick Grant from IT had the idea to do a new type of online course delivery where it's more the students can kind of pick and choose when they need to come to class. And we know we have hybrid, and I was on the committee, the hybrid committee, but I know there's still an interest, and I know you all were interested in it as well, but the idea was to tell the students you can take the class completely online if you wanted to, but if there are certain topics that are difficult or you need to come to campus, then the faculty would host section or host class those particular days. Or like, I teach a class right now, they're DISs basically. So we'll say, we'll do an online on-campus section for those students that want it. And so we'll get like half a dozen that'll sign up. So it never makes, because our bachelor students, they're mainly online. So is that still a possibility, or everybody seemed like they thought it was a good idea, but I don't know if that's still an option.
Sure. We are, however, with that hybrid committee, trying to get some clarity for students so they know what they're signing up for. We put it in the notes, but they don't read the notes. And so if there's a way to put it in the schedule that it's very clear, I think it would be fine. I mean, you're doing it now, right, already?
Kind of.
Uh-huh.
Like having an online section and the on-campus section, but the students won't sign up for a hybrid section if they think they have to show up.
Right.
So that's part of the problem. So even if we put in the notes, attendance is optional, they still don't sign up.
Yeah.
One of the things we could do is actually, if they sign into a class, we could have a pop-up specifically those classes that literally shows up in front of them and says, this is not a hybrid class, it is hybrid as on demand, if you will, by choice. So we could do something in the registration process to make it clear, but the student will have to actually try to enroll in that class first before the pop-up comes up. Because I wouldn't know what your intent is until you actually try to enroll. So if the problem is that they're not enrolling, the pop-up does not solve the problem.
So I've been talking to Michelle France about this very subject and how we relate to students that it is a hybrid course, but it's maybe a 50-50 hybrid course or an 80-20 hybrid course. So we're kind of working on that over the next few months as we roll out more of Seminole online as a brand. And there are some options there in how you communicate to students that it is this type of course, but there is an optional. You can come to campus for extra support or instruction. So I think there's things we can do in the communications, and with Dick, once they register, do a pop-up as well. So, as usual, we can tell people over and over, but the more times that you tell them and the more media vehicles that you use to tell them, hopefully the message will get across. But that's one of the things we are working on right now. Sometimes, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Dick and I used to joke about this. We always it's not Dick and Dick Rand. We like to have it your way. I know that's a Burger King thing. Yeah. But no other school does this. No other school gives students the option, because we have a lot of students. I've got a student in St. Petersburg right now. I have a student up in Pensacola. We have students from all over the state, so they can't take a hybrid course. I mean, they just physically can't get here. I've had students that have moved out of state for a while, taking a job or whatever. So, but I think it's a great marketing opportunity too, because no other school that I'm aware of does this.
So I was not aware of that. So this is the kind of meat that we'd like to get into with faculty is, please tell us what you're doing differently so that we can actually put that as a differentiator for us, because you all cover so many different areas, and for us to try and have eyes on so many different subject areas is really difficult. So yeah, Craig, I'm quite happy to talk to you about that and see how we propel more students.
It's sort of like having a potentially synchronous discussion section for a parent class, right?
Well, it's kind of like we teach discrete math. And discrete math students tend to struggle with discrete math in certain areas. So if the professor was able to tell them, when I cover this particular topic, I'm going to have physical meetings for those of you who need the additional help. So it's almost like a tutoring, but it basically gives the students the flexibility. And for people who want to do like on-campus testing, they can embed that in that type of course as well. As I say, the only time you have to show up is if, for the midterm and the final exam, for example.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's similar to the previous question. What types of checks and balances do we have here at the college to make sure policies and procedures are being followed?
Could you
Orly, could you elaborate a little bit? Are there certain policies or certain procedures? We have so many. Is there certain areas that your question is more focused on?
Well, for me as a faculty member, it would be directed to my immediate supervisor, which was one of the reasons why we were so interested in having a survey to see if it was just one or two people were feeling certain ways or if there were a trend going on. But I personally have found that policies and procedures were not kept with me, and I never knew what the checks and balances were to address these.
As part of the performance evaluation for all supervisors, all employees, non-faculty employees, there is a specific item related to does the employee follow policies and procedures. So that's one, where at that point, if there are any deficiencies or we identify that there are problems, then the opportunity is to let the employee know that it's not being done. So that's one. Second is,
If it wasn't addressed in the evaluation, then they were following policies and procedures.
okay, what was that again?
So you're talking about the annual evaluation.
Correct.
So then since there's a section there that talks about policies and procedures, then if it's not addressed there, then the employee is under the impression that they're not breaking the policies and procedures?
I don't know what to tell you in terms of what everybody else does in the evaluation. There is a section, and that's the place where we will identify if there is any failure of some employee to follow policy and procedures. And any corrective actions will come out of that as part of the employee plan. So what you're saying is that if it wasn't addressed there, is there another place to verify that they were followed or not? I don't know of any other place or anything like, unless there's a blatant violation and it gets reported and then it goes through proper disciplinary actions with HR.
That's what I was going to say is, okay. I hear like, so I think this question, if I'm going to just try and peel back the layers, it's really if there's concerns about a particular supervisor, if there's concerns about your supervisor, what are your resources? What are your options? How do you handle that?
It's part of the question.
Okay. So fortunately, we do have lots of places that an employee, a faculty member, a staff member could go. First of all, if the concerns are about your own supervisor, then what you could do is go to their supervisor. So bump it up another level and come and have a discussion with them about what are the concerns. If that's not something you're comfortable, you could bump it up even further. You know, if they have another level, HR is always open for concerns. We take phone calls, we take appointments, whatever's most convenient for you. Janet also is another resource of a place that employees, faculty, and staff can go. So there's lots of different options for here for faculty or staff to bring their concerns if there's something.
I want to emphasize that it's not Janet the person. It's resolving discrimination concerns, which is procedure 1.0600. That's for individuals who have concerns. Coming to Equity and Diversity Title IX is not a complaint. It's a meeting. It's a visit. It's confidential. I don't have to use your name unless you are committing fraud or something that I'm required to report, like child abuse, something like that. Otherwise, it's confidential, and we talk about resources that might be appropriate. Resolving discrimination concerns starts with some people who just want to make a report. They want to entrust me with the situation and walk away from it. They don't need an individual remedy. Other people want to make an inquiry, which sounds informal, but it's not. In that I look in, I make all my notes, I talk to all the appropriate people, and then I report back to the individual. The only difference between that and a complaint, the next step, is that I don't prepare the formal written report. The written report comes for individuals who choose to request a remedy, and I take statements that are signed by the witnesses, prepare a formal written report which goes to the president, and that's the third level of resolving discrimination concerns. But as you can tell by the title, it only works for discrimination concerns. The other avenues are those as specified by May.
The other thing I would add that is confidential is the supervisor's evaluation. So it may feel like nothing has been done, but in fact it probably has been, but that's confidential information. So if there was a reprimand of some sort, that's not something we publicize. So just to keep that in mind as well.
Greetings, y'all. Jim Jolly, Fire Science. I guess I got a question, a little overreaching question when it comes to students and all the problems that typically pop up that we deal with every day. And they usually pop up because grades start to fall, we reach out, or they come to us and go, hey, can we talk? And then there's some massive issue, and I've noticed the college can really wrap themselves around a student that needs help. But in the grand scheme of things, looking forward, and I'm a big fan of the Pathways Project, and I really enjoy that. Do you all see any kind of move toward that, you know, stop sign, yield sign, redirect the student back around, kind of what is outlined in the Pathways Project?
Do you mean specifically related to like students' personal concerns, or?
I think academic and personal, because they're kind of interrelated.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want to talk about the bid team?
Yeah. So let me talk about the personal part first. Obviously, when we hear a complaint or we hear that students having an issue, we have a contract with a third party. We have our internal counselor, so that's the first stop. And unfortunately for us, we've seen a lot more than the past. In fact, this year we have Baker Acted more students than in the history of the college combined. This year alone. So it's pretty sad to see some of the things that are happening. And we're dealing with students every single day, every day. We're having someone in a crisis mode. So actually that reflects back into their performance in the classroom, either in the grades or even just the behavior in the classroom, and you deal with this every day. I don't have to make you aware of that. So as soon as it gets reported to us, we obviously have counselors, mental health counselors certified here at the college. In addition, we have a contract with a third party where we refer students that they get for free up to 6 or 7 additional meetings that are confidential. We out of the picture, they work with us, they simply tell us, yes, they came, and whatever happens, similar to the EAP. And the third thing we're doing is, just started working, got a group together that includes also for a bit, behavioral intervention team. What they do is to try to give you all tools and how to deal with this in the classroom. And that's an email from Dr. Lawrence, and I'll let you describe that from what you did at your previous institution. And I looked at it, it's actually very impressive, where it's a self-paced, where you can take some what-if scenarios and do some sort of simulations yourself. And you click and tells you some of the things that you may be already experiencing, and it gives you an idea on how to resolve it. Then we could have some sort of follow-up with this bid to come back and say, you know, I saw this is something that happened to me, what should we do? Now, the other part of the bid, the creation of this team, is that Kevin may hear about it, somebody in HR hears about it, somebody in Heathrow hears about it, and nobody is communicating with each other to see it's the same person until it becomes a serious problem. So what we're going to be looking at is a software that somebody could just very quickly put the name of the student and the issue, and the system will collect all the data from all the different places and red flag a particular student, say, hey, you need to get in touch with this person because there might be something else escalating behind it. So those things are in progress right now, so stay tuned. It's coming back. It's all about giving you more support and try to give you additional tools to deal with that from the behavioral point of view. From the academic point of view, Laura and I and Dr. Lorenz are going to attend a Pathways meeting in January, and we are starting to we do a lot of things here locally, and in terms of separate efforts for guided pathways, but we don't have a cohesive one. And that's the plan, the next wave of what we're trying to do.
Laura, do you want to talk about Starfish in terms of the academic redirection?
I can. Yeah. How many of you are using Starfish to as like an early alert for your students? Oh. That's right. How many really want to use it and haven't had a chance? Yeah, okay. That's what I like to see. Yeah, so we have, I think it's 100 different sections that are using faculty are using this early alert process. And it's one of the recommendations of guided pathways that if it looks like your student is not going to pass, or if they just disappear, or even if they just miss turning an assignment, there are certain flags you can send them, even happy ones. You're doing a great job, but it's a easy system for faculty to use, from what I hear. So yeah, that's one of our guided pathway pieces, that as we see whether this is a good program for us to participate in, we already have some pieces in place, and that's one of them.
And that's what I was going to suggest too, Dr. Hammond, speaking to the personal side of things, that on the academic side, the people that were piloting, it was an expanded pilot of Starfish. I think we had 42 faculty or so this term that used it, and like I said, over 100 sections. So we just met, it was a week or two ago, to sort of work out the kinks and figure out how best to use it for folks. And I know the academic side are always researching the different sort of elements, whether it has to do specifically with pathways, and sort of investigating what we can do to help the students on that almost a more automated side of things. We've spent a lot of time talking about time to completion in our meetings, and there's some software that can even, a student goes to sign up for 2 courses and it says, all right, at this rate, you're on track to graduate in 9 years with your 2-year degree. And then even others that say, given if this was your expected earning potential, this is what it means over your lifetime, right? And then you click on one more class and it says, all right, now you're set for 6 years, and this is the effect on your, so it's a matter of finding, I think, the things that are efficient and work best for our situations, which is, I know we're in the middle of the Starfish sort of investigation at the moment.
Thank you, Kevin, for pointing that out, because and I will be bringing having a meeting with the Faculty Senate, probably January timeframe, to show you something that we're doing with PeopleSoft that is going to be more of a tiles, mobile type of environment. And one of those things that when the student clicks in, the first thing they're going to see is a pie chart that says, this is where you are, this is the courses you're taking, this is what you're going to have to do to complete. It's all about making them aware, hey, if you keep at this pace, just as the credit card tells you, hey, if you pay $5, it's going to take you 10 years to it. Everybody shakes their head, you see it. So we're going to do something similar to that, and also looking at another product to try to help the students understand what if scenarios. If I change, because this happens a lot, if I change the program to do something else, what will happen? And they realize, yeah, you're almost here, close to finish, but if you change this program, guess what? You may lose 20 or 30% of what you've already done. So the idea is to try to get them more education in terms of making the decisions, informed decisions. So we don't get these people moving between programs and then realizing that it's going to take them 3, 4, 5 years. Our average students takes 3 years to graduate, but most of them are between 3 to 4 years. Obviously, we have some students that are here, perpetual students, for 7 and 8 years to get a 2-year degree, but I'm glad that they're doing it, and life gets in the way. But that's the hope.
I had another suggestion. We tried a number of years ago to go back to some of our graduates to basically show what they're doing now. So ones that have gone on to get their bachelor's degree, and some of them went to graduate school, and now they have really neat careers, and it got buried. If you search on their name, I can kind of still find them, but I think it would be a really neat thing is if we had a place on the website that showed not only what our students' success, like not just the Jack Kent Cook scholars, because that's a small number, but what fire science students are doing, what all the areas, kind of all the neat things, and what the faculty and staff, because I think if I'm a student looking for a school, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, I cannot get my kids to go to school here. They're at Valencia. One finished at Valencia because perceived reputation. I know. I don't get it. It's their friends. A bunch of their friends come to go to Seminole, so I'm like, it's free. Just go. What are you doing? Just come on. The faculty, they're good faculty, but they just had something embedded in their brain. I don't know why.
Dad works.
It could be, but I told them, you'll never see me. You'll never see me. So anyway, but I think if we had something that showed, you know, like I know some of the competitions that we've entered and some of the really cool stuff, because that's, to me, that if I'm looking for a school and I'm not sure and I see, wow, they've got some really well qualified faculty, some really cool stuff they're doing, and they've won a bunch of awards, and that's going to get me more excited.
Well, let me just talk to that a little bit. So you all know we're working on the website redesign project, Dick's team and my team. We're working on that with a lot of people across the college for quite a while now. We're getting ready to roll that out towards the end of this year. And one of the places on there is alumni stories. It's videos of our faculty, of our students, of people who've gone on to notable careers. I mean, we've just done a round of commercials where we had 9 people who have, unfortunately we can't do more than 9 in terms of TV commercials, but we can follow that up with a lot of stories on digital media. So we can profile students who've gone on to great things, or faculty who are doing creative things in the classroom, or awards that we've won. So we've got a lot more opportunities with this new site to actually do that. But we regularly collect student stories. We are instituting some student stories actually in the graduation program this year. So we are building up a library. It's taken us a little bit while to get going, but anything that we can do to show that we're different or we're innovative, or you can come here and get that great career. Those are the stories that we want to hear from you as faculty members. And if you are doing something special in your sphere of influence, then that's another thing. So just feed them to us and we will follow up with them. We can only do so many over a period of time, but we are doing our best to do short interviews, short videos, short stories, photography, all sorts of things to get people enthused.
Are you going to post statistics as well? Like how many students go on?
We can do.
Bachelor's or graduate degree?
Yeah, I mean, we have Fast Facts, which talks a lot about that, and we do promote those interesting pieces. Yes, we could do infographics around that, that's for sure. And it's definitely something that we want to pursue. So thank you.
We also have graduates who are now faculty who are doing great things, so they too might be people to recognize.
Getting back to the behavioral intervention team, can you tell me who is in that team?
Right now we have, I can't tell you by name, but we have about 8 or 9 people, and Jeff Fortunato, David Lynch for sure. There are a couple of people from academics, I can't remember their names. Maxine Oliver. We have somebody from adult ed as well. Disability support services as well. So, I mean, I'll get you the list. We started about 2-3 months ago, had a few meetings already. And so, yeah, and I guess you're asking because you would like to be part of it? Yes. That's okay. Debbie is there. I was looking for another gig. He's the one who deals with most of our cases anyway. So.
I'm Marilyn Wells in nursing. Just some feedback and requests that you think about, and I don't know that there's a solution to this, but I've been here, I'm starting my 14th year, and I can tell you that the administrative team has grown for obvious reasons as accreditation and needs get greater and greater. From the faculty side, I can tell you that in my experience, it's not working. I'm spending more and more and more of my time on non-student issues. I spend more time in meetings and working on handbooks and accreditation things, and it's expanding. And I know part of it is because I'm now one of the old people in the department. No, seriously, I mean, that's, yeah, okay. Longer serving, and longer serving and older people in the department. But it does get in the way of my ability to focus to the level that I want to on my students and my curriculum. And, you know, I hope that as we had more support on the non-academic side, that would decrease, and it's not, it's increasing. Now, some of that might be because we're now starting down the reaccreditation road, and in nursing, it is a royal pain in the backside. But it's just something that I notice that more and more. I'm being pulled in two directions, and it doesn't feel good. Just a comment. Whatever can be done to minimize that would be awesome. The other thing I wanted to say is I would like to see at some point that we start an alumni association that is not financially based. We have right now our alumni association is very dollar oriented, not student graduate support oriented. And I know in our nursing area, and I'm looking at the nursing area, if we had a nursing alumni association that was there to support new grads, had things going on that developed and nurtured them through an incredibly stressful first few years of practice, I think that would be really valuable to the student, the graduate, and also make them more comfortable as they leave. So just a thought that, and not that I want to go to one more meeting, but yes, I will volunteer for that before I leave, okay? I am a drop, so you only have 3 years, only 3 years to get it going, okay.
Can I just address the Alumni Association? So over the last year and a half, couple of years, we've been reinvigorating the Alumni Association. It was in place, but wasn't very active. So over the last year, John Gillen from the Foundation and Economic Development also heads up that group, and they have just recruited somebody specifically to work with alumni. So I think she's only been on the job for a month or so. And then they have a chair of the Alumni Association who is a representative from the foundation board. So it's baby steps a little bit at the moment, but my team is meeting with them on a regular basis as well, see if we can collect those stories and, as you say, create a support network or an engagement network that isn't financially based, but talks about what we do for students.
It's my understanding that you don't have to pay anything to be part of the Alumni Association, and I think it's a great idea to develop interest groups amongst alums, and I know that they've sort of already started to do that with athletes. There was a little reception for athletes last week, I think, and a lot of softball alums showed up, like 50 or 60 or something. Pardon? Oh, yeah. So I think, and nursing would probably be a really strong place to start because so many of our alums stay and work here in Central Florida. So I'll pass that information along to Laura, I think is the new staff member's name. I think that's a great idea.
And we have 3 years.
All right. You should expect an email. But who's counting?
I'm Webb Harris, English department. I have something that for a while had just been a little petty annoyance, but over the last couple of semesters I've had some students with some physical debilitations, and I've kind of become passionate about it. And it's that the elevators in this building don't work. Is there any hope for having 2 of them work at the same time?
There you go, you're on.
Yeah, actually, while we were talking about this yesterday, and I got an email that 2 of the elevators were out. Yeah. Actually, one of them was out because of abuse. Somebody actually broke the buttons out, so that one was down because of that. The other one was a computer malfunction that they were able to fix within a half hour or so. We are having an extraordinary number of problems with our elevators here on this campus. We're in the process of, well, we actually went through the process of hiring a new maintenance company. So as of July 1, we now have a new maintenance company that are actually evaluating all of the elevators looking at all of the parts, the age of the elevators, and what parts need to be replaced, and they're going through that process now. We're also completely redoing some of the elevators on all of the campuses. Of course, this campus has the oldest ones, so we will be shutting down certain elevators at certain times and completely redoing the whole insides of the elevators, the electronics primarily, and then engaging those. But we have been having an extraordinary number of problems with elevators, and I know the elevator over in the Student Center was out. Supposedly that one was struck by lightning, so that was why it was down, and we spent thousands of dollars to replace that one. We're trying to recover some of that money that we spent on that one. But this building, you know, again, the elevators in this building, we've been having an extraordinary number of problems with this. Our maintenance group is coming in, and they're evaluating all of the components of each of the elevators, and then they're going to begin a cycle of reviewing those several times a year to try to prevent this from happening going forward. So we recognize it's real problem for students, real problem for employees, and some of the buildings only have one elevator, and that makes it even worse. Of course, I think we have sympathetic elevators too. So the buildings we do have more than one. If one goes out, pretty soon the other one's going to go out too, because they sympathize with each other, I believe. But so I think with the new company, we met with one of the supervisors in the company and really stressed the need to keep our elevators operating at all times, and he understands that and is going to be proactive in trying to make sure that happens.
And I don't know, Dr. Ross, if you want to speak to, you're going to talk about we're working on, yes, so.
I'll let Janet start. Okay.
I want to speak on a more broad basis about this, because while your primary concern is students, as you've expressed it, my concern runs as the 504 and ADA coordinator for the college. My concern runs to faculty, staff, students, visitors, vendors, individuals who have carts, like the custodial workers who need to go up and down, admissions people who are dragging those materials up and down, and the people with non-visible disabilities that you don't know why they're still standing there waiting. Could be an individual with a visual impairment. We also have individuals who have temporary impairments, individuals who have high blood pressure not under control that day, and they were told not to go up the stairs and things like that. You would never know, because many of those individuals are not registered with HR or with disability support services, because they don't need an accommodation if all the elevators are working. So there are people that we don't know are coming. There are people I know they're coming at certain times, and I can go over and intercept as I have done before. We have a protocol being worked on right now that will show, with the cooperation of facilities, which has been very strong, which will show that security, that facilities, that equity and diversity, that academic affairs, that student affairs, that everyone actually on campus is aware of what to do when that happens, and I mean immediately. And we're thinking of magnetic signs that go over the buttons and say out of service, in writing, of course, for those who can see, and in Braille for those who are trying to push the button with no vision and saying, why is this thing not coming? So if you think of, although Kate will not allow us to use the initials, SSC, if you think of Seminole State Cares as the only SSC we're allowed to use, we're going to have a protocol that says exactly what to do, and some of that is for the academic side, so I'd like Laura to describe.
Right, so when we hear an elevator's down and it's the only elevator or both elevators are down, like happened at Altamont one time, we had to work pretty quickly to either move a class down to the first floor. At Altamont, there are no classrooms on the first floor. So we put together a web stream so the student could sit in the library and watch what was going on in the class. So we have a couple of these options in place. Security knows to call the campus dean at Heathrow or Altamont or Oviedo. Here we'll have Maxine call Lisa Valentino, and she can contact Daniel if we need to move classes, and she will know which division or department, this is, so we can easily find an answer. But yeah, it's unbelievable this year, the number of times this has happened. I kind of wonder about this new company, Rick, but yeah, getting their money's worth. But anyways, so we are thinking about this, and we have plans in place for how to quickly solve it.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, the sort of working through the protocols was last week or the week before, so we're trying to get everything nailed down, and then we'll be pushing that information out to all faculty so that they know this is who you call if there's a problem, and we'll have the protocols in place.
For the record, we've not broken anything in the Center for Public Safety. All the elevators are working there.
So I heard that UCF had early voting. It might have been during the primaries. I can't remember. Is there any way that we could get a voting location on campus?
We actually explored that, and the conclusion we came to for this round was, number one, we probably started exploring too close to the actual election date. And also the sense that I got from people that I talked to was that we have a lot of early voting places and some are near our campuses, so would it be redundant? But it was something that we looked into, and perhaps for 2020 we could, back up and plan further in advance to do that. So it's certainly something we've considered and could definitely consider again, particularly for early voting, because you don't have to go to a particular place. So, and I know our students are really interested in civic engagement, and they've put on some great programming this year. So it would have been a nice complement to that, but we kind of didn't get to it in time.
The only challenges I could see to that, I know all the early voting spots that I had, which was one in Volusia County to go to, was chaos with the number of signs, people screaming, and I went,
I was
what
really
the hell
surprised by
happened?
that. I was not in California anymore. I was like, what the hell is this?
Nope, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be, controlling the chaos and the parking. I went to the library on Greenwood, I think, right just over here, and there was like a huge lineup to get into the parking lot. So the voting was fine, but the parking issue, yeah, so there are definitely some logistics, to consider.
For faculty who are on continuing contract track, what are we doing to train, support, and evaluate their progress?
So the Faculty Center is working on ways to do that. I think that's probably the place. I think some departments also have mentors situations set up within the department that they can work toward. But open for suggestions on that as well.
So there isn't a system across the board for the college, so you could have very different experiences depending on the department that you're in?
Well, I think, yes, that's true within the department. Not everyone does the mentors. I don't know, can I see how many of you have sort of that system set up where there's someone within the department that helps to, yeah, okay, so it's mixed. That piece is mixed, but the Faculty Center workshops would be open to everyone. So it's just whether people attend or not.
The Faculty Center doesn't currently have where they talk about what the criteria is. And then also, what about evaluating progress over time? How would the faculty member know that they are reaching milestones and knowing that they're on track? Because otherwise you are investing 5 years and then not receiving it.
Right, so I want to back up a little bit because I know with the new faculty at orientation that Faculty Center runs, Dee and I do a session on continuing contract and the process and the criteria, but that's only one. I'm sure that there are others during convocation or welcome back that we have had. In fact, this last go-round, I think we had a session from the Faculty Center, right? So other than working with your dean, attending those sessions, that, unless some of you have another idea, that's all I'm aware of.
So if the dean says you're on track, you would then believe that you are moving towards continuing contract?
Well, I think we're in a different situation now. I think that was the case, but since we have the collective bargaining agreement, there are parallel processes going on. Certainly the dean is evaluating your process, but then, as you know, there's the departmental committee and the college-wide committee that is a parallel process. So, you know, it's from several different sources that you would need to connect with.
Are there plans in motion to help new faculty know how to connect with that? Is it going to be fair across the board?
Well, I certainly would hope it would be fair across the board. Barbara LaBranch does a new orientation for faculty, not just the 2 days before classes, but they meet for 6 weeks, you know, every Friday. So there's plenty of time for instruction there, but certainly we are open for suggestions and could add more.
How is feedback done?
I'm sorry, on the workshops?
No, for continuing contract.
Before they get it or after it?
So before, so how would they know that they, like, what feedback is in place? And if you're saying the parallel with the department and the college-wide, and not forget, as well as the VP of the area. Also, from my understanding of reading the contract and what's on the legal affairs website, is that before it gets to the president, the decision's made by the VP. So how is the faculty getting information from the department, from the college-wide committee, from the VP?
Okay, again, after the process or during the process or before the process? I'm not
all throughout.
I think this is more complicated than I can get into, but I would hope that you would be talking with your dean going through the process, working with your colleagues, you know, what can I do to help you in the department? How can I help move the department forward? You know, is it a good working relationship to achieve what the department is trying to achieve? And then it's, you know, you're teaching what goes on in the classroom, what your students are saying, student learning outcomes, all of those things. I think usually faculty monitor all of those, and again, open for suggestions. That's, we can always improve in those areas, but that's what we have in place right now. Anybody?
Off the other ADA, we have I'm in V102, and it's kind of a heavy door to get up, and we do have a couple students in wheelchairs, so we have to physically get up, or our administrative person has to get up, hold the door for them to get in, and to get back like where my office is, in V102, yeah. So there's I don't know what the requirements are to put the button in to automate the door, because I know they really struggle in certain areas. I know that you can't, it's hard to do probably in every classroom, but in a suite of offices, I'm surprised there's not, I don't know what the solution is.
Rick, aren't we, yeah.
Yeah, if there are particular areas on the campus that you feel may need a review, we would be glad to take a look at that. There are certain requirements for, you know, exterior doors, interior doors. If looking at how hard it is to open the door, if it's too hard, if it's too hard to open, then it has to have openers on it. It all depends on the requirements. So if you gave me the information, so I'll have someone take a look at it to see what might need to be done to meet our requirements, or the federal requirements actually. Okay.
It's a suite of offices, so there's about 8 to 10 people.
I'll have somebody come over, take a look at it. Okay.
I thought I might ask forward-looking. We've talked about it a bit, certainly during the interview process and throughout the fall as you kind of get acclimated, but sort of your ideas about strategic planning coming up, beginning, and what that might look like and how people can be involved?
Yes. So we are planning on getting a cross-sectional team of people, both internal to the institution and a few external people together, to examine data on, a lot of the data that we already look at, the student outcomes, retention, et cetera, about our student performance, and then also looking at projected demographics, particularly around each of our campus sites, projected workforce demands, et cetera, to try to really get a sense of the context that we're working with and some of our strengths and weaknesses as an institution. Then we'll take sort of the findings from that group and use that as the basis for strategic planning, and we'll hold, we're hoping to hold a strategic planning summit probably towards the end of next fall semester, and then also take the show on the road and talk to internal constituents, external foundation board, and we're through that process soliciting feedback and also communicating the findings. But particularly for the external group, it's also a vehicle for people to, for us to raise their awareness about Seminole State College and how we can help to address workforce needs that they may be experiencing, et cetera, et cetera. So that is our initial thoughts and how it will be rolling out. And I hope that sort of data examination group will start working this January. That may be a little ambitious, but I'm hoping that we will get started on that.
Because I'm an Altamont person, this is really trivial. The speed bumps as you come into this campus are not 25-mile-an-hour speed bumps. They need to be labeled as 15 to 20-mile-an-hour speed bumps, says the girl who hits them at 28, okay?
Have you taken out the bottom of your car yet? I
hear those. Debbie knows, yeah. I bought them down a couple of times.
Yeah.
Of course,
I'm sure you don't drive the Corvette over there.
Yeah.
I do, but I'm driving for 5 miles an hour. So
Well, I do, at least I have to run to another meeting right now. I'm sorry to cut, feels like I'm sort of cutting this short. That was not my intent, but thank you very much for your time this morning and the feedback. And we do hope to hold these meetings once a semester. So we will see you again in the spring and have a great Thanksgiving holiday next week.
And thank you all for joining us. Thank you. Thank you all.